And right before I was moving my wife up here, child, I got fired.
Paranoid. He was paranoid.
Yeah. That's when you wake up and say, "Oh, this is what adulthood is," right? That's
Take two, man. This is Real Nigga Podcast. This
Man,
is Lee.
get a job.
Good evening, world.
Cheap
This is
ass
Lee
camera.
Johnson. Once again with
Get out
Real
that
Men,
man
Real
bedroom.
Stories Podcast. My name's
Boy,
Lee
you ain't
Johnson. This
real.
is Real Men,
Where
Real
the
Stories
music
by
at?
Lee Johnson. How you doing
Boy,
out
you
there?
sweaty
My
as
name is
hell.
Lee Johnson.
What you
Here
think
again
you the
from Real
polo
Men, Real
player?
Stories Podcast.
Ah,
Real
that
Men,
shit's still blurry.
Real
What the
Stories.
hell is
I'm going
that?
to call this episode 7. Welcome to the Real Man, Real Story Podcast, man. I'm Lee Johnson, man.
We outside. Real Men, Real Stories podcast. Damn, there still ain't no music.
So when King got assassinated in Newark,
oh man, it was up in arms. It was on fire. But it
Yeah.
didn't matter what your ideology was.
Okay.
It was a black man getting assassinated that was trying to do something for his people, regardless to whether or not you thought that was the proper way
Okay.
or the way.
Okay.
Right? So it was still, he was doing the work.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really, at the end of the day, it's about the work.
And I know this is kind of off kilter question. Was Newark, and I don't know because I wasn't born back then, was Newark Malcolm X city, a Martin Luther King city?
No, Malcolm.
More Malcolm?
It was more Malcolm. Well, you have the older generation that was more Martin.
Okay.
Right? They, though different than in the South, it just had different dynamics where there was a fear to kind of be in a white man's face. Right? Don't go too far because of how they may react. But then you had now in the 60s, if I was born in 1960, so by 1970, I was 10. So, but you had the younger, the 18 to what I call the warrior stage, right? Um, they wasn't hearing it. They was Malcolm. So you had those competing things. So it's a true story. When Martin was in New York and he went over to talk to some brothers and sisters in Newark, right? That's when the famous quote, I don't know if I integrated my people into a burning house, right?
Yeah.
So he said that after coming back from some talking to some young brothers and sisters in Newark, right? And then after that, he said, well, "What you gonna do, Martin?" And Martin said, "We're gonna put the fire out." See, that part of that quote always gets missing.
I never heard that part of the quote.
Yes,
Have you heard that, Larry?
Nope, never heard that part of the quote.
We're gonna put the fire out. That's the full quote.
Mm. I like that.
Okay.
Y'all just learned something, and don't nobody tell me that you knew that. So y'all just learned something today, man. Y'all just learned something today, man. Oh, before I do that, um, I also want to do some advertisements. You know, matter of fact, I'm gonna say that towards the end. I'm gonna say that towards the end, man. About 10 minutes.
Drop it throughout.
You know what I'm saying?
Beginning, man, drop it.
Well, yeah, man. I guess I want to drop it, man. I want to do some advertisements. We're gonna cut in the middle. You know what I'm saying? I want to shout out Black Dot Cultural Center. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna host a wonderful watch party on the 5th. This is the man with the plan. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna do this facility. It's gonna be a lot of good thought. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have crowd interaction. We're gonna have big screen TVs. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have a lot of things. So come talk about what you want to, who you voted for if you want to. You know what I'm saying? If you want to question people, you want to give like some great forums. We're going to do on the spot interviews and everything like that. But you want to tell anything about what we got going on there?
I think, well, you kind of wrapped it up, but it's
Okay.
just it's a watch party, right? And it's a watch party that really allows us to be our authentic selves and ask our authentic questions, right? Be real about it, whether we agree or not. We have to learn to disagree and just see how this thing flows. I don't anticipate we'll have an answer that night,
No, we won't.
right? But we may have an idea or a clue.
And I definitely want to touch back on why we
Yeah.
don't have an answer because I discovered, and I got it off listening to the man has a radio show. You know what I'm saying? His radio show is The Urban Politician. I seen 52 episodes of just knowledge, I've been listening to a couple of the episodes, and I got some knowledge on electoral college. I want to dive into that a little bit later,
Mhm.
but you know what I'm saying? I want to get back into your history, get off the advertisement. I want to get back into your history, man. So when did you decide to leave Newark?
Ooh,
And were you an adult? Did you leave with children?
I was an adult.
Okay.
I
What was
went
your
to
next move?
I went in the military in 1979.
Okay.
In fact, I want to tell the story. In 1977, the court said go in the military or go to jail. I went to jail.
Oh, you chose jail over the military?
Yeah, I wasn't going to the military.
I want to know how much
I was
time
a
though.
juvenile. I was a juvenile delinquent.
Oh, so he was nothing.
So, well,
How much
time
time?
is time.
How much time?
Right.
You right. How much time was it though?
Well, actually, so for me, although I was in the juvenile system,
Mhm.
every time they sent me to a psychiatrist, the psychiatrist be like, "There's no reason for him to do this."
But you
So they never sent me to Yardsville, which is like the prison and the juvenile prison.
Okay.
They sent me to boys' homes, right?
Right.
them ain't no
And
cakewalks
and
sometimes now.
nah,
Them ain't no
but it was
cakewalks.
better than Yardsville,
I got you though. I'm
right?
pretty
I mean,
sure.
I gotta keep it real, right?
Better than the big.
So it was. So I went to this place called the Shepherd House in Plainfield, New Jersey,
I have heard of that.
right? And I ultimately got kicked out of there right before my 18th birthday. But while there, I got my GED,
Congrats there.
right?
Good business. Good business.
And I got my GED in 1978, which should have been the year that I should have graduated high school.
Mhm.
Okay.
But I was 2 years behind. I wouldn't have graduated high school in '78 because I was already 2 years behind. But I got kicked out, and I had to go back to the court system. But the judge released me because I was about to turn 18. Okay, so I worked for a year at a gas station,
Mhm.
and then I decided to go in the military. So I went in the army.
What did you do?
I was a medical specialist.
Combat or just
Combat. Well, the title was combat medic,
combat?
91 Bravo.
91
Right?
Bravo.
Right. But I ended up working in. You remember that show MASH? You
Yeah.
remember MASH?
Yeah, I used to watch, man.
So I worked. That was a clearing. That was what they call a medical clearinghouse. So I was assigned to 547th Medical Group, which was a hospital.
Where were you
Right.
located at?
Fort Stewart, Georgia.
Oh man, you was chilling. Big
Yeah.
combo.
I started in Fort Stewart, Georgia, and then I got what they call an inter-battalion transfer to Savannah to Hunter Army Airfield. So then I was kind of in the heart of
Yeah.
Savannah. So I did my 3 years and I got out.
What what kind of 3 years were they?
I think that was probably one of the most significant 3 years of my young life because during that time, so now you're talking about 79 to 82, right? So one, it took me out the streets.
Yeah.
Two, it protected me from the crack epidemic because that's when crack exploded,
Right.
right?
You're right.
So I'm not in New Jersey. I'm in Savannah, Georgia, where it hadn't quite hit yet,
It didn't. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It really wasn't
So
even down here when I came in the late
so
80s.
Was in Atlanta.
when I got out, but it wasn't in Savannah, Georgia.
Right, yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that they weren't basing,
Yeah.
like free basing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I did experience, not personally experience it, but I knew.
He had to clear that up. Yeah.
Right. I mean, right.
The whole
Right.
interview.
Right.
I'm
Right.
just playing.
So true story. I was living on post and I had a roommate. He was from Queens, right?
Uh-huh.
And I came home one day and some of the other fellows was all sitting around with this. It looked like a bong to me. Like I don't know if you remember the one hitter bongs that you would
Yeah.
put weed,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
it looked like that, right? But it was like tall. It was tall, right? And they was in the hallway of our apartment and they were smoking on this thing, right? And they asked me if I wanted something for whatever reasons I said no.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know why I said no. So
God,
it's like
God.
to me, it's in divine order, right? That I said no because I watched each one of them spiral out of control after that,
Yep.
right? So that was basic. So when I got out the military in '82, I went back to Jersey,
Okay.
right? And you know, you hook up with your boys, right? But one of my really good friends, Basil Russell, I'll never forget. I was at his crib, and they was selling dope and doing all that shit, and they wanted to go pick up in New York, and he said, "No, you stay here. We ain't gonna put you in this,"
Why you think they protected you like that?
because they knew I was doing something else. I had a future. It's like any other brothers out here. Like you see these young boys that are athletes that have an opportunity, you protect them.
What was your opportunity? What did they see in
I'm,
you?
everyone thought is even though I was a juvenile delinquent, I was always smart.
Okay,
I ain't have to do that shit. But I wanted to be cool. I didn't want to be corny.
I got you.
And
I
back
got you.
then that shit made a difference. I don't know what it's like today.
Same, the same.
Right. But cool mean you was in them streets. And if you in them streets, you gonna find trouble, right?
Definitely.
So I was kind of always on them cuffs because I always had the corny girlfriends, which always ends up to be wives, believe it or not, right?
Okay.
But they just, I guess, I never asked him why, but he just said, no, stay out of that. So I just always assumed that he didn't want me to get caught up in that.
So you never
Right.
really dabbled around
So
in
I
that?
never dabbled around in it. But at the same time, like crack had hit my community so hard that what's interesting was there really wasn't no laws because they didn't know what the fuck. It's okay for me to cuss.
Oh yeah.
Man,
They didn't know what the
this is the
fuck it
lightest.
was.
Yeah.
Right?
The
They
lightest.
really they knew what cocaine was.
Yeah.
There was laws on cocaine,
There were no
but
laws.
they really had no idea what crack was, what these rocks was.
Okay.
And I saw my boys just like poof, like become nothing.
How fast?
Fast. It's like when it hits you, what they say is that first hit is a high like a high you never experienced. And every other hit after that, you're trying to get to
Chase that
You're
thing.
chasing it, but you don't get there. And it just, you go down that rabbit hole, right? And I've seen that. So what was interesting, but you also saw it on the tail end of the heroin epidemic at the end of the 60s.
Yeah.
It was real. So I got to see
All of it.
both of those, right? But I was really young during the heroin epidemic. And then between that and young adulthood, it was we might take some codeine and some pills, right? It was kind of acid you might try, but that was really some white boy shit. But you
Yeah.
might try some purple dot or some shit like that just to see what that high was, right? Um, so I was kind of fortunate that I came up like right in between that, and then I was removed
Mhm.
when crack hit because I was adventurous. I would have been one of those ones that would have tried it.
Mm.
So I mean, because if you're in that element, some new shit come through. Yeah, you try
So,
it. So
did you find anything else to get into except the crack?
So
So the 80s. So you
the '80s. Now we in the '80s.
now we in the 80s.
So
Going into the 90s.
I'm married, by the way.
Okay.
Right.
Kid.
My first marriage, my oldest daughter, Kia. They're still in Georgia. So I got to get my shit together so I can bring my family to Jersey, right? So I found one job at a bank. I got my first job at a bank in mortgage collections,
There you go. Now that's
right?
that
And
that's your first job at a bank was mortgage. You could
out
talk.
of the military.
You could talk.
You know,
You
I grew
talking
up.
in that
I
interview.
grew up in a. I went. My mother sent me to an all white Catholic school.
Okay. Okay.
So I grew up being very comfortable around white people. It's a benefit to this day because I know brothers who aren't comfortable. It's awkward. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that was always an advantage that I had, a benefit that I had is that I grew up, I went to school with them, so I kind of knew how to be, be me, but be around them and not whatever that thing is that happens between us. So I worked on that, worked that job, and right before I was moving my wife up here, child, I got fired.
Mhm.
and I had just paid my first month's rent for an apartment,
Mhm.
and I have a job.
You was annoyed. You was paranoid.
Yeah, right. That's when you wake up and say, "Oh, this is what adulthood is." Right. That's your first. That was my first.
Yeah.
Like, I can't run to mom and dad.
You gotta
I don't have the military to, you
yeah,
know,
to
I got to figure this out. So the landlord, it was a sister that told me that her brother had sales positions in the mortgage business over in Staten Island.
Okay.
So I went over and interviewed. Now, this was a commissioned only job. Like, they didn't give you a salary plus commission. They taught you how to fill out a basic loan application, and they sent you out the street. And you had to sink or swim.
oh dang.
Right.
So you went out trying to fill out loan applications or
Yeah,
teaching
but you
people how to
wanted to
do
buy
it,
a house, then you had to come to me to fill out the loan application.
and you would show them how to fill out a loan
No,
application.
I would fill out the loan application form.
Uh-huh.
They provide documentation.
Okay.
Then you package it and you turn it in. And
Okay.
if it gets approved, they close on the house and then you get paid.
Okay.
So it still happens like that. Right.
Okay. Okay.
The only difference now is you have computers that have your credit that do that. See, before I used to have to look at a long credit report and figure all this out. You got computers and credit scores now. We didn't have that.
Mhm.
Right? And I'd have to say, what's this? What's this? What's this? I need a letter of explanation for this slow payment. I need you to pay off this collection. I need a letter saying why you went. You had to package all of that, right? And you package that deal together and you turn it in and you close. Well, I didn't sink. I swam.
Mhm. So you was good at it.
Yes. And it was like, for me, like a young black man, I'm dealing in money, right? And now, even in Jersey back in the early 80s, you could property values was high compared to a lot of places around the country. So you were
Okay.
still talking about your average loan amount was 125 to 175.
What was your commission?
So my commission can be in the mortgage business, you were allowed to charge up to 3% in point. They call them points, 3 points.
Okay.
So however you got your points, if I got 3 points on a $100,000 loan, I will split 50-50 with the company.
Okay.
So if it's $100,000 loan, I would make $1,500 off of that one closing. Now times that by 8 or 10 closings a month.
That's good money.
That's the kind of money I was doing. So young and dumb, I blew that money, but I remember also having conversations with other brothers saying that was slinging. I'm making the same kind of money you
that they
making,
making. Yeah.
but I don't have to look over
Your show.
my shoulder because one thing about sales is right. When I was young, I was selling loose joints in nickel bags. That's my first sales experience, right?
Larry can tell you our first sale. My first sale.
You know,
Yeah.
that's really my first sales. Like,
Nickel bag of
yeah,
joints.
nickel bag. Yeah, you get you $5 for a nickel bag. You get 8 joints. So what you rather do? You break that down to 8. You sell them. You made $3, and you just keep turning that. And then you buy a dollar. Right, keep turning it. You get to a quarter ounce. You
Nickel
keep
bag
turning
of
it.
funk.
That's how we made our paper, right? So that was my first sale. So really, the only thing is the difference between that and doing mortgages was product knowledge.
Understandable. That makes a lot of sense.
In sales, it's just product knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
That's all it is.
Once you know
Product
your
knowledge.
product, right? And I used to, attend. The white folks used to send me to see Zig Ziglar, which he made millions of dollars off of selling Tupperware, right? And he had this book, See You at the Top, and his other book was The Secrets of Closing a Sale. And once I got a hold of that,
It's over with.
oh, it was over. So I did that in Jersey. Then I ultimately moved to Chicago. Did that in Chicago. Then I came down here, and then I did some fuck shit in Chicago that got me caught up with the feds.
That's what we moving to. Motherfucking Chi-Town. We on the fuck shit now. Now, how long it took for us to get to the fuck shit like that shit? Do y'all see the direction I was going with the questioning in? I'm fucking fire with this, y'all. Remember that shit. So now we on the fuck shit. This is I am the fuck shit guy. You already know that. So explain the fuck shit and why Chicago the fuck
So
shit.
we understand gentrification.
Definitely. Atlanta,
All
we
right, so let's start there, right? So I work in the mortgage industry. I develop relationships with realtors. So one of my boys, Vincent Ashley, he was a realtor, right? And then you make other relationships. So in Chicago, between 43rd and 47th Street, from King to the lake, you had these beautiful 3-story gray stones, like the brownstones in New York, right? It was gray stones, right? And after the Vietnam War, they started cutting these gray stones up, and instead of it being a single family house, it would be 3 family. But that's not the best usage or what gets the best value. Best value is as a single family, because now you're talking about 3,000 or 4,000 square foot home.
Like a 3-level mansion type. There's a nice
Yes,
neighborhood.
right. So,
Much bigger.
so now this community was all black and drug infested. So what's the first move that you started seeing was you saw a Chicago police officer riding through the neighborhood 3 deep. 3 in a car, not 2. 3 deep was they was moving the dope boys off the block. Why? Because the white folks was moving in.
How did they get prior knowledge of this? And who
If you don't
said things like
see,
that?
see, this is when it comes back to politics. Because if you ain't going to the city council meetings, if you ain't going to the zoning meetings, you don't know what the city's planning for these areas because there's already a plan. We just don't know what that plan is because we're not in those meetings or we don't have a seat at the table.
There you go.
Okay.
Because you think even we are in the meetings, do you think we could affect it would just have to be numbers in the meeting, not
I
just
think it's
one
numbers, right?
Okay.
But if we know, like, is that's how you control your community, is that you have the numbers, but the representation has to be a part of what you're doing, right? Or what you want to accomplish. So you can't just have anybody at that seat because they're gonna sell out to the developers and the builders too. Because they ain't nothing like, and I'll get to that, right? So we started seeing that. So another brother came to me and he was like, yo, I have these investors. We can go in, we could buy these gravestones at 100,000. We could sell them at 440.
So they came to you with the idea, or you
Yes, but
presented
they
the
needed
idea?
the financing part of it.
Okay.
So they would go to whoever owned that gravestone and they would offer that person $100,000. What the white boys was doing, they would go with cash. Now, if you ain't never had that kind of money in your life, what you doing?
So
And you in a drug infested neighborhood.
you got it.
Right.
You got it. I hope it's in my name.
And they did.
Whoever name is in, they better be here when the money
In
comes.
my neighborhood.
Yeah. They show up. So we had investors who had cash. When I say cash, I'm not talking about loose dollar bills. I'm talking about stroke a check and close a deal. Right. So we had investors that would invest with us getting these properties. Now, typically what should happen is you get the property and you do the rehab, right? Bring it back to a single family, then sell it for 440, but you have to establish the market, right?
Yes.
So in when you establish a value for a property, the subject property, the property that you're selling or that is being sold, an appraisal has to go out and get 3 comparable sales. Comparable meaning 3,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, 3 baths, whatever that combination is, pretty much the same acreage. That's a comparable. That's sold in the last 6 months.
in the same area or different area?
within 1 mile
I had a
radius.
feeling it had to been in the same
Now,
area.
redlining. Okay. Redlining is when it's within that 1 mile radius and you don't use that comp. That's redlining. So what we were able to do was, I said between 43rd and 47th Street. 47th Street to 53rd Street is where Elijah Muhammad lives. It's where Barack Obama lived. So these property values, it was the same structures, but they was worth $400,000, $500,000. So we got an appraisal to forget that imaginary red line on 47th
That's sad to
Street
feel you.
and use those as comparable. So that's how we would. And then we have brothers and sisters that would buy the property at 400 and something thousand, and we would give them 100,000 back to do the rehab.
Do you think that's why it's so easy to gentrify down south in Atlanta? Because there's a lot of bad neighborhoods right next to a really good
I
neighborhood.
think that in
Think that
looking
happened?
back on all this, I look at this city right here that we're sitting in, right? The housing stock in this city is probably the lowest in all of DeKalb County, or one of the lowest in terms of value, right? Why aren't we gentrifying this? What when I say gentrifying, why aren't we buying these properties that's about to rise up, right? So when we look at these neighborhoods in Atlanta, right, what we see is I'm not buying nothing up in there. We're not looking 5 years, 7 years down the line, nor do we have, because we're not showing up in these meetings and getting involved and having a seat at the table. We don't know they's about to do Grant Park.
And you know what?
Right. We don't know that's coming, nor do we see the signs, because when you see the white boy walking his dog at 7 o'clock, because this is what we saw in Chicago. It's like, wait a minute, what white boy don't walk through?
We saw
They here.
we saw it in Atlanta.
You saw it, right?
We
But
saw
it
it in
ain't
Atlanta.
computing.
You know what? It computed to me. Before we get to that, man, I want to also, if you want to keep getting this knowledge that this brother is spitting, and I can keep bringing this content, like, comment, subscribe at real_stories on YouTube, man. Please like and subscribe. Check us out. My Cash App's at Lee Johnson 657. You want to donate, because it costs money to keep these things running, man. So check us out at real_men_real_stories on YouTube, man. So back to the red line question, man. That red line to me seems similar of what I remember seeing the white people moving in my old neighborhood. I remember the first houses they start to buy and they immediately refurbish the house. And you thinking they're gonna move, but they stay there. You know what I'm saying? And then the next people come, and then the next come. It already been high police presence in DeKalb County, Decatur, and that side of town. But now it's just like, you know what I'm saying, just white people moved. And I think gentrification in Atlanta's not too hard, because Atlanta's not as violent as Newark and Chicago. So tell me, how did that gentrification survive in
So because
Chi-Town?
you had the police, see, because you can't have, when you do a planning, zoning and planning, you got to have a full strategy. So if you remember, I said the police was riding through the neighborhood 3 deep. So it's an overabundance of police. But what happens before that is there's fewer police, because now they're driving crime with fewer police presence. Therefore, the property values are going down.
So they're doing that on purpose so they can buy it at
It's
a low.
intentional, absolutely. Because how else you going to get the Negroes to move out?
They can happen simultaneously.
It does. It does.
Like unconsciously too.
Yeah.
Like there's this unconscious thing, because just like we talk, if we wherever you gonna go, it's like this is undesirable. We want to live here,
Right.
Manhattan, Chicago, wherever it is.
Right.
That's where we want to
Right.
live, outskirts. And then when it becomes undesirable,
Mhm.
I want to go back to the city. I want to go
Mhm.
back to this thing. You know, like it's the upper hand.
Right.
They get to choose because they're strategizing.
They strategizing, right? They know what's coming, and it's also having foresight, right? It's being able to look at something and say, that's what it looks like now.
Mhm.
this is what it's gonna look like later.
right? And we make decisions on that's what it looked like now versus this is what it could be,
I understand.
right? With some investment and some tender loving care and more people doing the same thing. So sometimes it's self-inflicted wounds on our part.
I
So I
understand.
don't always blame them
agree
for
with
some things
I agree with you on
because
that.
it's we look at it and we be like back in the day, who the hell wanted to move on Bankhead unless you was already on Bankhead?
Exactly.
You ain't
Right
had
now,
nowhere else
look
to
at
go.
Bankhead, right?
You ain't had nowhere else to go. That yeah.
Right.
Northwest Atlanta is expensive and it's nice. Now.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
But there was
over
a
there.
time when wasn't nobody moving there unless you had no other place to go.
Exactly.
But look at it. Now
Yeah.
just think if you well, I'm not gonna bounce all the way to Savannah, but I remember if you ever been to Savannah right outside of River Street,
Yeah.
right, all them beautiful mansions down there, you could have got them for $40,000 when I was in the army. It was trash. And nobody wanted.
That's crazy. Dang.
It's real.
Them some big ass mansions.
It's
Yeah.
real.
Shits is
I mean,
huge.
if you ever
Willow
go,
trees,
it
the
was
whole
like
fucking
because
savannah.
you could still see how it's going. Like if you know the streets, how white folks is just it's systematically street by street, block by block, going away from the river into the heart where it's just they're taking it all back. That used to be all black people up in there.
That river state, that river property is expensive. Just
You know,
that's not
so
seen.
so it's so you see this coming. So we just came up with a scheme where we was really trying to keep black people. We was trying to sell. We would buy the property, sell it back to a brother or sister, in order to keep black people, because it's riverfront, not riverfront, lakefront, Lakeshore Drive is here. It's a block off. Is where this community starts, right? South side of Chicago, coming down Lakeshore Drive. It was all black except for Hyde Park, which was a little mix, right? But that was a black community. So we kind of wanted our idea was we wanted to keep it black. That was our deal, right? And we had brothers and sisters who was making the money that can afford these $400,000 nuts, right?
Okay.
So one brother, it's a whole story behind this brother. So I hate to bounce all over, but I have to say this, right? So I was dating a girl at the time, right? And she worked for First Chicago Bank.
Mhm.
And this is we was live she had an apartment on the north side. And my cousin, when I moved to Chicago, I stayed with my cousin, which was in the same high rise, right? So we started kicking it, and I just kind of moved from my cousin's house down to hers, right? So I was fucking with Henry, and because Henry was in the mortgage business. So Henry had to drop something. I don't even remember why he came to the crib, right? And he dropped it off or whatever. And then when I got home, Angela, the girl I was dating at the time, she knew Henry.
Mhm.
And she told me, don't fuck with that nigga. But I didn't listen. Now, fast forward.
Okay.
Henry's kind of involved in our little consortium to get these houses done. So Henry comes and he says he want to get a house for his sister. We had done 5 properties already, right? So we like, cool, okay. So find a house, has the investor, sell it back to his sister for 400 and whatever it was, 440, I believe, right? Henry doesn't make the first payment. It's what's called a first payment default.
So they try to take it back.
Well, what happens in the first payment default is they quality control the loan.
So what
So
happens?
they go
Interest
through
rate.
every little step. So when they started going through every step, they started looking every little. They looking at everything. They're investigating.
Yeah.
It's a first payment. Now, mind you, Henry got like 200 and something $1,000,
He just missed the first payment.
and he didn't make the first payment. So then what they did was they got the appraiser, because he never rehabbed the property. So when the bank went in and looked at the property, the rehab wasn't done. The appraisal was done as if all this was done. We just cleaned up the outside and had the appraisal take pictures. We never did the work on the inside because we gave the purchaser the money to do the rehab.
Uh,
So now they got the appraisal. So once they got the appraisal, they got all other the deals that we did.
so they investigated all of them.
Oh, then they got me.
What was the charge, you mind me?
Bank fraud.
Man. Can you tell me about that day that it went down? Like where were you at?
That they got me?
Yeah,
I was in Atlanta.
You was in the A? You was in the South?
So we were talking back there. It took 7 years. Let me tell you something.
Also
The feds
Atlanta on
got the
this
feds
show.
came and got me 3.5 months before the statute of limitations expired.
Oh, damn.
Damn.
And let me tell you why. Do you remember it was the first World Trade Center bombing?
I do remember that. That's why they reinforced
They were
it. That's why they
investigating.
flew planes this time.
They were investigating at the time that the first World Trade Center bombing happened, and when that happened, they took FBI agents off of that and put them on that job. So they stopped investigating. And one FBI agent, when he came, when all that was said and done, he said, "Oh, by the way, what happened to that case we was investigating?" Right. So I had moved to Atlanta. And first when I moved here, I was staying with my sister for about 2 months and I had a mortgage company here on the north side.
Okay.
I was living on the north side off of Roswell Road.
Nice little
My sister calls me up and she said, "You got a call from the feds." I ignored it. She called back a week later. She said, "The feds calling you." I wanted to ignore it, but I was afraid she was going to call my mom.
The feds was gonna call your
No,
mother.
that my sister
Oh.
was going to call my mom. Because my sister was panicking. The feds calling you, you start to panic, right? And I didn't want my mom to know. So I called them and they want me to come to Chicago. So the first thing I did was I started calling around Atlanta, find an attorney, and that's realized that there's a difference between a state attorney and a federal attorney. And that difference is a lot of fucking money. Because I ended up finding a federal attorney to represent me in Chicago, and he said, "I ain't talking to you unless you give me $10,000 to start."
For a case that he might not win, that he most likely will have to
Start.
settle out. That's deep.
So I had to give him $10,000 and went to Chicago. We went to the Fed building or the U.S. Attorney office in Chicago. He told me to shut the fuck up and sit there and listen. The feds pulled out. Henry, going back to him, had fucked up something, and we had to create a canceled check. Oh, damn. And make a copy of it and send it to the lender for them to fund the loan after we closed it. After we did that shit, I tore the check up and I threw it in the garbage can. The feds, the U.S. attorney, plopped that check down to me, taped together.
That's fucking deep. They went through your garbage.
No, Henry pulled it out the garbage and kept it in case he got fucked up.
He was gonna try to use it against you.
He's gonna use it, but not just me, everybody that was involved. It was 13 of us.
Damn.
That was involved in this.
I was getting paid. It was that many of y'all. Y'all.
Everybody was getting paid.
Damn.
And the deal was keep everybody happy. Now, I have to say this because I don't want to glorify this.
No, no, no.
Right?
I understand.
Because I didn't have to do this. I was making money.
Okay.
I was running my own mortgage company at the time this happened.
Okay.
I didn't need to do it and I knew better.
So what drove
So
you
I'm
to
taking
do it?
full accountability.
What ultimately drove was greed?
I think what drove me at the time, and this is what the judge said to me at my sentencing, was we wanted to keep the community black.
Okay.
Great idea, you just went about it the wrong way. Because all we had to do was rehab the fucking property before we sold it.
Fix the inside. Yep. Fix the inside.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, look at you. That
That's
you already
We
know.
do real estate.
You do real estate. I'm waiting for you to chime in.
that's
I'm learning. I'm learning.
yeah.
The red line.
That's,
The red line.
that's all we had to do was fix the property. We had the investors.
You had the money. You
We
just.
had the money.
Loans.
Yes,
Closing loans,
we
bro.
was closing loans.
They had an appraisal. They took out the red line.
Yeah,
That's dope.
we removed it.
This shit is crazy, bro.
This shit is crazy, bro. This shit is knowledge.
You can't make
You
this
can't
up.
listen, man. You can't make. That's what we're gonna tell you to like, subscribe, and comment on this type of. I just learned something. We got two mortgage guys in here right now. You know what I'm saying? This shit is crazy, man. At real underscore man
I'm sorry.
underscore real underscore stories.com. Go for it. But yeah,
If you ever fill out any application that is federal, bank, do not lie on it. Do not lie, because that is a federal offense, and your ass will go to jail.
and I'm pretty sure it's not $10,000 anymore for a federal.
Exactly.
$10,000
That's the lesson. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. So you
Don't if it's with a bank, because bank is federal.
yeah.
I don't care if it's a local bank, it's federal.
It's over with.
Don't lie on it, because if your ass get caught, you're going to jail. It's
So
that simple.
what was your time frame? What was this? What was the
I
month?
do a lot of times.
Okay. Did time get
I
you?
had more paper
Oh,
than I had 5 years paper, which I would
That's a
rather
lot.
had more time than
yeah,
because
because they probably
paper
on your
paper.
ass.
I don't know what state probation is like, but feds,
It
they
just
like God. They try to act. Some of them could act like God over you. Like they come to your house at any time and walk in your bedroom
They be
and
doing the
move
same.
around, pop up at your job, and then wonder why you can't pop up at my job.
State
Yeah, they know I'm a felon, but they don't want you here.
That's fucked up. I think they be trying to state do the same thing. Same shit. It just depends on the probation
It
officer.
does.
Yeah,
But I
state
had
do
an
the same shit.
asshole for 4.5 of my 5 years, and then I had a drunk motherfucker after that that didn't give a fuck.
Gave him some alcohol. Should we buy him some booty? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause that's all they really
So-
want. So all right, prison. So did prison make you the political guy that you are today?
No,
Did it
I was,
start in
I
prison?
was. Remember, I told you I got kicked out of that boys' home,
Yes.
and my probation officer taking me to the juvenile delinquent jail.
Yes.
This was at the time that Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin,
Mhm.
the prime ministers of Egypt and Israel, signed a peace accord.
Mhm.
I had a whole conversation with this white boy probation officer on my way to him taking me to jail. And he had to pull over on the side of the road and like, what little nigga knows some shit like that?
Okay.
So I said that to say I always found politics fascinating. I was a 16-year-old in a boys' home reading The Breach of Faith, The Rise and Fall of President Nixon.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So it's
definitely
just something that I don't know if it was because I saw it as power, if I just saw it as I don't know what it was, but it was just always fascinating to me.
So you found it fascinating. So you get out of prison, you start getting your life together. How did the politics mix in with your life getting together? How did you mix that in with that?
So when Facebook came out around what 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
right? I started posting about political shit,
Got to be one of the first people doing that shit.
right?
Especially one of the first black people I've
And,
ever heard doing
and
that shit.
2008 is when, I'm correct, Barack Obama ran.
You remember some of your first posts?
No, but I had a blog.
Oh, you was a blogger.
I was a blogger, right?
You was talking shit.
And I used to blog, right? Like true story, right? And I wish I could find that blog. I know it's in the sphere somewhere, but it was Super Tuesday, and a whole bunch of states vote on Super Tuesday, right? And at this time, the Congressional Black Caucus, with the exception of a few, all of them had backed Hillary Clinton, not Barack Obama.
Interesting.
But on Super Tuesday, Barack Obama wiped Hillary Clinton's ass.
Got the Democratic nomination.
right? He didn't win a nomination,
Okay.
but the way that he beat her, there was no catching him, which means these elected uh, black elected officials that was endorsing Hillary Clinton wasn't really representing what the people wanted. That's how I saw that.
Okay.
Because the people obviously voted for Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So I wrote this blog. In fact, I called into the Al Sharpton show and he called me a liar on air.
What?
Yes.
I should have did more research. I would have loved to pull that thing out.
I wish I could find that.
Oh, I'm
Right.
find it.
He called me a
I'ma find
liar
it.
because I said, what's the Congresswoman? Maxine Waters.
Yeah.
Because he asked me who, and I said, I called up Maxine Waters. Her district, by and large, voted for Barack Obama, but she was one of the final black congressional members that changed her support for Hillary Clinton for
Okay.
Barack Obama. She didn't do that until the nomination was almost said and done. So I was like, they're not following the will of the people, right?
Mhm.
So um so my friends started calling me the urban politician.
Okay.
That's how the nickname came up.
The radio show name.
The radio show name. So they nicknamed me the urban politician.
Okay.
And I had a previous podcast because a friend of mine's he wrote a song, like a Think Black song. Ronnie B. Ronnie B came to me and said, "Hey man, you ever thought about doing a podcast?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Why not?" And what excuse came. He said, "Well, I produce music, so I would produce the show for you."
Okay.
So I only did 8, 9 shows, and then I stopped because it didn't seem like nobody was listening. There was no
Sometimes I don't think
comments.
nobody even
There was
listening
no
to us.
likes, right? There was no likes. But then, like Devon knows, like I'm in the Chicago Steppers community, and that was kind of my base of people. As I moved around the country to these Steppers, said everybody was saying, "Why you stop? Why didn't you comment? Why didn't you like? Like I didn't even know you listened." Right? But people listen. You can't assume just because they're not liking or commenting
That they don't like it.
that they not listening.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's what I did. I'm like, why am I doing this and ain't nobody,
Yeah.
so I stopped doing it. But it's just something that politics is something that I've always enjoyed.
So he invited me to my first panel the other time, and you know what I'm saying? It was very enjoyable. I know I'm the black sheep everywhere.
No, you're not.
I love it though, because my ideas are a little bit different.
No, they're not.
But yeah, well, no, they're not. But tell me, I'm in the storytelling time. You've been on several panels. You've conducted. I got to know a wild story of somebody that just kind of was just somewhere else. Like, have you ever been on a panel that got a little heated, or a panel that you know what I'm saying that you might have had to cut off a little bit early? Because I enjoyed it, but I could see that type of forum with a big crowd going out of control.
I have not personally experienced that, but the thing that comes to mind was I told you about my first podcast, right?
Yes.
And I wish I could remember the elder's name, and he transitioned. Um, it was this elder, and I think the organization was Black Men Think. They were kind of housed out of North Carolina, and had different things around the country. But anyway, I used to talk to him all the time, and he used to just drop knowledge. He was an Africano Studies professor at University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. Uh, so I invited him on to my show to interview him. And he and I used to get in this discussion about the responsibility of elders and younger generation, right? How younger generation wasn't respected. We used to get in all these and the whys, right? Um, so I bring him on the show, and he walks up one side of me and down the other. And in my mind, I'm trying to give the elder respect, so I'm not challenging, right? So we finished the podcast, and he calls me up and he says, "What the fuck was you doing? If you can't handle this heat, how you gonna handle these white boys' heat?"
True. True
He
that.
said, "I talk to you all the time, and we push back and go back and forth. I'm trying to be respectful."
Yeah,
but that's not what he wanted.
He wanted that. He wanted
He
that
wanted
raw.
that. And we've had these same discussions over the phone that I just didn't say on a podcast.
He wanted that raw.
Right. Because I didn't want to contradict him or not prove him wrong, but just, I didn't want that. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then my boy from Detroit, he's 10 years older than me. So Bobby would be 74. He called me up and then I told him that I had a drink or two before my podcast. It's like,
I'm
he
drinking
was
right
like,
now,
don't
so I
ever,
can't even say anything.
he was like, don't ever do that again. And then he also got on me about not standing on what I believe.
Okay.
Right. And it wouldn't be disrespectful. There's a way of doing without being disrespectful to the elder. But the elder wanted me to do this. So
I
that was a
understand where you're
lesson.
coming from.
You,
I understand because I might have flabackled. Me and him probably might have flabackled the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to disrespect this man because you look up to him and he invited you, so you don't want to. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of like you lay back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So I understand.
But now, like, to me, the shoes on the other foot is that I like when I'm challenged.
Yeah.
I remember that.
You
I
know,
always remember that.
challenge me, right?
I like the challenge.
It's because if you're not challenged, you don't go deep, right? It doesn't allow you to just critically and deep think if you don't challenge me. Like I like when I have to stop and think about how to answer a fucking question, or just say, you know what, I don't know, but I'm about to find out. Right? I like to get hit with that, because otherwise, if you to me, you die.
True. True.
So I suspect that the elder felt the same way about me
Okay.
at the time. It's like, challenge me,
Okay.
right?
I don't want to challenge you. I just want to ask, well, a little bit. I want to ask, because I heard the lady ask your answer, what is politics to you? I already understand what's your viewpoint. What is politics to black people? Because the question I asked, I didn't understand why going to different parties when we still got to unite ourselves. And you broke down policy and different things like that. The major question I want to know is, what does politics, how do we get involved? How do we fit in this country politics? You know what I'm saying? Now, how can we get in your viewpoint, how can we get to a seat at the table, as you were saying?
Well, first understanding that you ever heard of taxation without representation?
Yes, sir.
Right. And although that's like this really catchy phrase, it's like it's really serious. I pay taxes every day. I pay sales taxes on shit every time I buy something. And yet I don't have a fucking say on how that money is being spent and to whom it's being spent with.
Okay.
Right? Some may say I don't have a choice or white folks gonna do what white folks do, right? But some folks is getting that paper. And they look like us. Now what they do with it we may disagree with,
Yes.
right? So one thing that I've learned is, especially local politicians, John, you have everybody's number in Lithonia, do you not? And they pick up the phone when you call, do they not? We may not like the shit they do, right? But ain't nothing do you know how many people if I'm sitting there having a conversation with you and say, oh, the mayor called and I gotta take this, they be like, wow, but that ain't no big deal. It's really not.
So when you calling them, yeah, I understand where you
But
coming
people
from.
think like because we don't think that they're accessible.
And they're a little more accessible than
They're a
what we
lot
think.
more accessible than what we think they are, right? It's show up at we showed up at city council meetings, right? They get to know you. They get to know what you're doing, right? So they ask, right? It's you can develop these relationships, right? Now, the thing is the dynamics is you look at in this city you have 5 city council and a mayor. So the majority, whatever they vote on, it 3 votes gets that win. So to me, the objective is, or should be, is you need 3 votes. We should be putting those 3 votes in that office.
I understand. I understand.
So you don't go to city council unless you know, you don't ask them for shit unless you know you got the votes.
Okay.
Right? Most legislation, when we look at Congress, most legislation is not written by congressmen and senators. It's written by some outside think tank group that hands that shit off to a congressman. The stand your ground law.
Stand your ground law.
So what's the brother that got killed in my southern Florida?
Yeah. Was it a car? Somebody?
No, Trayvon Martin.
Okay.
Trayvon Martin, right? So Trayvon Martin. So Florida and 13 other states passed a stand your ground law, where the previous law, and I forgot what they called it, but it was basically if somebody walked into your house or entering your car, you could take their ass out,
Yes.
right? Right. So stand your ground law extended that to the public square if you feel threatened.
Okay.
Right. Now, what happened was there was an organization called American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC for short, right? And American Legislative Exchange Council comprised of major corporations, all of which we spend money with every day and we bank with, and Republican state representatives and congresspeople.
Yeah.
They crafted this law in their think tank in Alex, and they handed it to a Florida state representative and said, get that vote, get this bill passed, and we're gonna put the money behind it to ensure that it passes the Florida state legislature, House, and the Florida Senate, and the governor will sign this bill into law. And once that happens, we're gonna copy this law in other Republican-controlled states.
Lobbying in the source.
Bang.
So let me ask you something. That's legal though?
That's
Correct.
very legal.
That's very legal. Okay.
But you missed something.
Okay.
These legislators ain't coming up with these bills.
Love that. Who's coming up with these bills?
Think tanks, lobbying companies.
Like Walmart, they don't want to come over.
And that's still
Why can't
legal
we do
also.
that? We don't do that.
Yeah, we don't do that at all. I think we do that in the sort through social media.
Well,
We do kind of, but it's more we look at it as like, oh,
we're splintered. Black women. The best example we could have is black women in 2020 when they demanded a black woman be put on the ticket and they demanded
yeah,
a black
they
woman
pushed Biden.
on the Supreme Court.
Yes, I
Right.
remember that.
So that was a demand, right? Now, were all black women involved in that, in voicing their demand? But no, but they all fell in line on it,
Okay. Yeah, they definitely,
right?
majority are definitely gonna fall
They
in line.
they fell in line, but you have sororities, you have other women organizations, you have women that got a seat at the table that came together, and them the ones who you got media personalities, Joy Reid on
And they
MSNBC,
pressured
some
Biden
of these
to go
others,
put him
right?
in the ticket.
So whether they pressed it or not, but they said this is what we want. I don't know whether it was pressure or not because I wasn't in that room, but he did it.
I think it might have been applied a little bit of pressure because I'm not sure that would have been his. I don't think that would have been his
He
first
won
pick.
with it.
I think that's one of the main reasons why.
Well, see, this is what I mean, and I feel you on that. But what I try not to do is get caught up in the weeds about what I think happened because I wasn't in the room.
Right. Understandable.
And that's I'm not
No,
disrespecting
you're
your
right
point
about
of view.
that. You're right.
I
About
don't know what happened in the room.
Yeah. I'm
What
just
I
going
know
by
was
what
a demand, and he said yes.
He said yes.
Whether it took him, whether it was a whole lot of pressure, a little pressure, I don't know.
I understand that. Yeah, I got you.
Right?
I got you.
Anything else is getting in the weeds.
Right.
Right? To me, it's like because we could sit there and speculate about
Yeah.
it, right? Of what we think, and there's a whole lot of varying different opinions about that, and all the opinions are respected. But I wasn't in the room,
I agree with you on that. You're right about that.
so the question is getting in the room. So essentially, in the city of Latonia, we've established enough relationships to get in the room. He's on the Downtown Development Authority. I'm on the Housing Authority. Right? We're in the room. Right? So now you take this and you do it in other municipalities and you do it on the county level. Like I'm trying to get in the room on the county level.
DeKalb County.
Yes.
Yes, them black
So
folk.
what did I do? I got involved in the CEO race.
Talking about the DeKalb CEO?
Yes,
You
Lorraine
be the
Typhon
first one that
Johnson.
ain't crooked.
Huh?
You be the first one in a long time that ain't crooked. I would be worried because they end up prosecuting all them dudes as soon as they finish. It's,
Again,
all them dudes are jail.
all I care about is being in the room.
Yeah, that might not be the room you
Because,
want to be.
well, put it this
I
way.
feel you. I feel you. Though I understand.
I have a choice whether or not I cross the line or not, right?
Yeah,
No matter what room you in,
yeah,
you have a choice.
yeah.
And if you choose to cross that line along with them, that's your ass. It ain't mine,
Your
right?
ass is
So, but
grass.
what you want is to be in the room. You want when you call, they answer the phone. You want when something comes up that's in your realm of expertise, they call you.
Yeah,
Stonecrest picked up the phone and came, walked in the Black Dot and asked me, will I manage their Juneteenth?
that's raw.
I didn't go asking them.
They came to you.
They walked in and asked me, would I manage that? And I took that and created more opportunity and I got screen on the green.
So, do you feel like local politics is more important than the federal stand?
I wouldn't put it that way.
Okay.
Local politics controls our day-to-day activity,
Yes.
but you can't remove state and federal from that because federal and state laws have overriding laws over what local can do. So here's a better way to put it: follow the money.
What did I say?
Okay. So
What did I say?
so we pay all of these federal taxes and all of this, right? The federal government here, Biden's infrastructure deal. Millions of dollars came to the state of Georgia. Millions of dollars came to the state of Georgia. Millions of dollars came to DeKalb County. Guess who ain't asking for none of that money? We ain't.
You're right.
Because we don't know what's there.
We got stimulus. We
And
got the stimulus.
and not only do we not know it's there, if you get a major project, infrastructure project, you got to have what? Insurance, right? Well, first of all, you have to have a business, right? You got to have bonded. You got to be bonded, right? A lot of us out here could do the work, but guess what? We ain't doing. We ain't legitimizing our business. We not getting the things that we need in order to take advantage because there was an edict on that money that black participants from the federal government that they wanted a certain set aside of black participation for that money was coming directly to our community. That came out of Biden administration.
Do you think it makes any sense of giving all that money but still raise taxes? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just asking, are your business owners, has taxes seemed to be going up the past couple of years? So does it make sense to give that money away and does it seem like most of that money
He
just go
may
to
make
tax?
over $300,000 a year, but I don't. So I don't have the benefit of tax break.
Okay, yeah, tax breaks is certain,
Okay.
yeah.
So I don't have
So is it rough for you?
So I'm gonna go back. Remember I told you I would make 10, 15, $20,000 a month in the mortgage business? And at that time, Bill Clinton was the president and the federal tax rate was 36%. So if you have a $10,000 check and you're taxed at 36, how much you coming home with?
Shit, 70, 77,
6,400.
60, yeah, 6,400.
What the fuck you think? You just knew you made
Small money.
10,000 and you get a check for 6,400. How you feeling?
Yeah, I heard some businesses. I heard.
You feel like you're being raped. But here's the thing. Your business says, "Oh no, I want lower taxes," right?
Mhm.
But then me, not everyone, I'm saying, well, my grandmother on Social Security and Medicare, right? I got family members in the projects on housing. So when you lower taxes, the government has to shrink, just like in your household. If you got less, if you lose an income in your house, you can't keep the lights on all night long, right? You buying less groceries, right? Because you can't. So here's what happened. Trump lowered taxes for people wage earners 300,000 or more in 2018, 2019. But the first time that I'm aware of that there has been a tax cut without shrinking the government budget. So what happens is there's a deficit
and then you gotta, and then I
And
guess,
with a deficit comes what? Inflation.
yeah, yeah,
But the inflation doesn't happen until the Biden administration, on top of COVID, that created a demand issue, a supply versus demand issue, which also creates inflation. But we don't see that until the Biden administration, and we're saying Biden created higher prices.
no,
And I've been saying they have.
You may not say that, but what I'm saying, there's a narrative,
I understand
right?
that.
But you have to follow it. So even if you're going to have a tax break or tax cut, you got to shrink your entitlement programs. But the entitlement programs that's always under attack are ones that directly affect our community, even though we're not the majority of people on them entitlement programs.
Project
There's
money
more
for
white
the-
people that's getting WIC and food stamps, right, than
Yeah.
black people, but them black people that's getting WIC, can we afford, what are we going to do if they lose their shit? That's what I said to you the other day, right?
You
It's
can,
like
how can we get the money for it? Where's the money
it's
gonna
who
go?
gonna take care of
Gonna
them?
take care
Who
of it.
gonna take care of them if they
Yeah,
lose it?
exactly.
So that for me, that checked me in terms of I understood where that 36% of my tax dollars was coming out of that $10,000 check, because well, my mother made me understand.
She broke it down in a
She
sense.
broke it down. It's like, what are you willing to
So
sacrifice?
let me
Because
ask,
it's about a sacrifice.
what do you feel about Trump's tariff policy? Do you think that could kill that 36% coming
No,
out your
that's
check?
going to raise costs
Like a mug,
like a mug.
like a mug.
It's a horrible idea.
Because he already attempted it with Canada and Mexico, and
Yeah.
they retaliated,
Yeah, the prices went up.
went up.
Again, why are the price of goods higher today?
People got to pay attention.
Right? So usually monetary policy that happens in one administration, especially if it's just a one-term administration, the second administration is the one who has to deal with that,
Yeah,
right? So Obama's first year was coming off of the Bush years when the economy went crazy,
yeah, exactly.
right?
And I actually.
However, Obama had 8 years to correct it, so he didn't pay a price for that. But if he was a one-term president,
It would have been his fault.
it would have been his fault.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't want to
For Bush's tax cuts, because what Republicans do, if you look at historically,
Yeah.
every time you have a tax cut, the economy, inflation goes up.
Because they smart, they got to keep it balanced.
But because they never do, because white folks on Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, WIC, food stamps, right?
Yeah.
So they never actually. So then they try to cut the defense budget.
And that's a bad. I was with Clinton was cutting the defense budget. I was in the military with that.
Newt Gingrich cut the defense budget.
With so but it was part of his administration though.
Well,
I ain't saying
he was
Clinton's
a
fault.
president.
He was a
so,
president. Newt Gingrich was the one that voted.
Newt Gingrich was
You saying
the House.
Republican?
Well,
He was a House Speaker,
who
right?
was responsible for monetary issues on the federal government?
Secretary of the State,
No,
Treasury.
No, the Treasury.
no.
I mean the reserve.
Congress.
House Representative.
Congress. You have a fiscal budget that you have to pass every year.
And they have to pass, and that's
every
why
year.
that's
So
why the government shut down, correct?
That's why they
Because
shut
they
down.
didn't sign,
Right.
they didn't sign the proposed.
So
Yeah.
so every year there's always this fight because Republicans want to do this because they want to cut taxes, right? And then if it's a Democratic administration, they play tag and shut the government down, but then they always suffer when they shut it. Bill Clinton didn't suffer from a shutdown. Barack Obama didn't suffer. It's always them. So the House of Representatives is who really creates the budget. And then the Senate passes it and then it goes to the president.
Well, I was noticing if the House, if there is a split electoral college vote, the House of Representatives one that select the president.
That's constitutional.
I mean, because
that's in the Constitution.
that's in the
Yeah,
Constitution,
if
the 12th Amendment.
If it's 270, then
12th Amendment.
the House.
So the House of Representatives. Okay.
Here's the catch. House and Senate members, the new ones, are sworn in on January the 3rd.
3 days before.
3 days before. So if the Republicans maintain the House, then if it's a tie, they can muddy the waters and they can choose, they can vote, right?
We've never
But
seen that though, have we?
no, we have not ever seen it because we've never seen a tie.
Never seen a tie.
But what we have seen is challenges. We saw challenges in Bush v. Gore, and we saw challenges in 2020.
That you definitely on point. But before we really get up out of here, man.
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nah, say what you gonna say.
No,
I
I
got something to say. I wanted to bring
if it's on that, go on and bring something up because I'm getting on something a little bit different. So
yeah,
go on and go.
I just want to just commemorate this moment, man. This is amazing to have you here, first and foremost. Thank you for coming. Big Black the Manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to, because you kind of said you got into politics again in politics, but I want you to tie the politics, tie history, like foundational Black history in the politics, and why it's so important. Like why this.
That's what that basically is
This
about.
is a political book,
Yeah.
right? This is a political. Okay. Thank you. Ooh, where do I want to start?
Look, the truth is, we over an hour right now.
Okay.
No,
I was gonna get to the book last, but I was gonna jump to something else first. But I was gonna get to the book last. But go ahead.
I understand what's taking place here. This is something that I seen from the beginning. Like I know how y'all too. Y'all coming from different worlds, but same world, different perspective. That's all I'm gonna say. You know what I mean? So
I like that question. Very seldom is that question asked to me. So I appreciate that question because this is political. So as a baseline, Professor James Small stated, politics is the management system of our economy, right? He said it's in everything that we do. Um, so when it's interesting, so I saw a sister with a Think Black T-shirt, right? And I said, "Oh, what you doing with that?" She said, "I didn't had this for years, right?" I was like, "Well, can I use it?" She said, "Yeah." I just added supporting Black businesses, emerging Black love and unity, and I created a T-shirt. Okay, right. But it really started from economics for me, right? Is at its genesis, it was like supporting Black businesses so we can grow our economy, right? Um, so when I would wear this T-shirt, actually, let me step back. There was a brother that had a computer repair store on 124 across from Walmart, right? And I went in one day and I had my T-shirt on, and he was like, "Ooh, where you get that from?" And I used to carry him around in my trunk, and he said, "Can I get one?" So I sold him one, right? And then he called me the following day, and his boy wanted one. So I came back and I brought him another one. True story. Third day he called me and somebody else wanted. But this time when I went up, he said, "Brother, who make your t-shirts?" And I said, "This sister in West End." Right.
West End. That's where you was
Right.
at.
And
I'm trying to think about the West End. Go ahead,
right.
man.
So she said, "Yeah." She said, I got this Korean dude that does t-shirts at really, really good prices, right? And I'm looking at him. It's a Think Black, right? So he noticed how I'm looking at him. He said, "Why are you looking at me?" And I said, "Brother, when I drove down here the other day, I could have made a left in the Walmart to go buy that computer part. But instead, I made a right to come to your establishment. Walmart was directly across the street, right?" He said, "But Walmart does." I said, "We all say that your product is superior. But it was intentional for me. And I paid more money for your part than I did, right?" So, but little things like that was happening. And then I started really understanding because I got that James Smalls quote after I wrote this book, right? We were having a conversation. And when he said that to me, I was like, if we thought Black, not just economic, you can't separate politics from economic growth. Two go hand in hand. There's no we can't talk about building a strong Black economic base unless there's a political thing to support it. right? So it all kind of ties into me. In for me is that we have to attack it both ways, right? And Chuckway Lumumba, um, one of my political heroes, he was the first. Now, I don't know if he was the first black mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, but he came out of Michigan. What you would consider a woke black man at the time, revolutionary, right? Coming out of the '60s, right? He was a, a legal scholar, attorney, and he went into the community in Jackson, Mississippi, and they started coming together and having meetings, right? How do we change our community? How we better our community, right? And they were all in line, so the community decided that he should run for city council, and he ran for city council, right? But then he realized, well, hell, I'm only one of, right? Yeah. I need to run for mayor. So the community backed his play, and he ran for mayor, and he won. Unfortunately, he transitioned after it was either right before his first year was up or his second year, right? But the point of the story is that he wasn't this politician that came to the community telling the community what they were going to do for him, black, white, or indifferent. He came out of the community, so he was representing the people. Like I always look at politicians. Are you a community activist? Like what work are you doing in the community before you decide? Because that transfers very easily, right? And I don't know if I answered your question, Javon, but the lesson in this to me with this book and then going forward is that you can't take politics out of anything. But what we have to find a way to do, what we have to find out, how do you take a simple concept like that and break it down politically?
I
Right.
like that.
Right.
You just put it in the book. I like that.
It's just not just put in a book, but just have real conversation, right? Javon knows this. Your When you opened up your restaurant, part of your health department application was how many seats are you gonna have
I heard about that.
in your restaurant, right? Now to the average person you say that to, they like, what? You know what I mean? Like that's how they calculate it. But think about it. If it's a large restaurant and it has 50 seats in there and you got 50 people potentially but using your water, your sewage, right? That puts there's a cost to that, right? But
Yeah.
but the political question is and should be, so when you break it down like that, something that makes people say, why is that? The political question is, well, with these water bills that we pay on, the way that they taxing us and these fees, what are they doing to improve on this water? Because the Cab County has a fucked up water infrastructure.
Yeah.
So the political question is, right? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? What new technology, right? Is it in the budget? Why is it in the budget? What is taking away from getting this water system down that's taxing all of us, right? And who are the commissioners that are not making the move that they need to do to get this done? And we vote these commissioners in. So is a District 4 commission that's whole shit up? Well, hell, we in District 4. I live in District 4. So that's how we have to figure out how to take these everyday things that we deal with and how to break it down. Because most of us don't know that the Cab County commissioners decide on the budget whether or not they're going to spend the money on something we all need. Because these pipes is 100 years old underneath this ground, right?
And they
That
got
we drinking, and we cooking our food in. Our babies is eating this, right?
And I get that.
That's
And I'm
political.
getting that water stain in my toilet.
There you go.
Because of whatever's in the water.
Whatever's in the water, right? That's political.
no taxation without representation.
There you go. But we sit on the sidelines and say, the motherfuckers, that's their shit. They ain't doing nothing for me.
Man,
And that's exactly what type of attitude I think that most of the governors have.
I like. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Now, I like Javon put the race with the political because really the last thing I wanted to touch on was critical race theory. And I've been going through a lot of your stuff. And I seen that was highly important to you because that's some of the last things that you spoke about on your radio show was critical race theory. The question is 18 states. I think she answered that, but it was 18 states, 45. The thing about critical race theory, how important it is for a state to adopt. just like a brief before we close out, how is important for critical race theory to
Well,
adopt by
first,
state?
first, let's start from critical race theory. Is really a legal term that addresses systematic racism from the perspective of African Americans. Okay, that really stayed in college campuses where they debate and research these things, right? So, what was the book that 1619, the 1619 Project? New York Times in 2018 under the Trump administration came out with this huge spread. Was it the New York Times or the New York Daily News? One of them with the 1619 Project before it became a book, right? And that dealt with critical race theory, right? The Trump administration put together a panel of individuals to combat. He put the panel together. He impaneled it, right? And another guy's name is in there. He escapes me right now. The white boy that came out of Oregon, Portland, Oregon. He hired him. He was on this panel, right? Because they didn't like that Trump wanted to keep American history and for it to be taught the way that it was taught and not our perception of or from telling a story from our worldview or perspective, right? So this white boy then gets hired by Ron DeSantis down in Florida. Okay. And then they start banning books and all of this material
Florida?
in Florida.
How long ago was
Georgia
this?
did it too.
How long ago was this?
They've been doing this the last 4 or 5 years.
They still burning books?
Yeah, banning.
But I'm just being
Yeah.
extreme. Yeah.
Georgia did it too, where they wiped out any of the Board of Education for the state prohibited any teaching that would be considered under critical race theory.
So, but all the states haven't done that.
No, but
If you think it's mostly
half
South
of the
states.
half of the country are run by Republicans.
Yeah. 44 states have introduced the bill. I think 18 states
That,
have
that was
passed
then.
policy.
Is that current or was
This is
that?
current.
That's
It's
current.
current.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
since January 2021.
Yeah.
I don't think they released states, but it says like so basically this is laws that from our perspective. So if you got a state that denies some of these laws, it doesn't even look at the critical race theory. That
Well,
basically
New Jersey didn't even enter into passing a law that bans books or critical race theory or anything else.
why
New
why would
York
you
did
think they
not
would
do
do
that
that?
because they're not governed by Republicans.
Okay. But Republican governed state is not gonna.
Republican governed states are the ones that are banning books and pushing back on critical race theory. It's Republican governed states.
So how? So that's another. I'm gonna jump
It's
before we.
Christian nationalism.
So
The
understand
Republican Party, a large part of the Republican Party is Christian nationalism.
I kind of figured they put a little religion in it.
Okay.
What'd you say,
Well,
Larry?
the same Christian nationalists that in the dungeon in Africa had the church on top of the slave trade, that was Christian national. Christian nationalism haven't changed at all. Those were the Ku Klux Klan that still went to church every day and thought it was okay to hang a nigga. That's Christian nationalism. The Republican Party is full of Christian. Not all Republicans or white Republicans are Christian nationalists. Some of them are fiscal conservative,
Yes.
right? But their base is Christian nationalist, i.e., MAGA.
So what are the states that you know that are not trying to adopt it? We already know Georgia.
California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Portland, not Portland, Oregon, Washington State, uh, maybe Michigan.
All these are highly populated
Those
states.
those are Democratic controlled states. Connecticut. There's no banning of books or banning of critical race theory, a pushback in Democratic controlled states. Period.
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 Only Republican, when I say controlled, I mean the governor and the state legislator have the majority Republicans. That is the only place that is happening.
So definitely we can understand it. We always know where the Republican Party belongs in with the black people. And I guess before we really close this interview out, you know what I'm saying? I guess my take on a lot of things is I still don't understand why any black man will vote for Donald Trump. I'm not saying I'm for Kamala or anything like that completely, but absolutely I don't understand why any black man would vote for Donald Trump.
Well,
just period.
Some black men. There's something, and this is a whole nother conversation. And I don't really want to open this.
Yeah, we're not finna go
But
down.
black-
We're finna close this out. Yeah, we about to close this out.
That's because if I
wanna
to stay out of that.
Watch party.
For the watch party.
We gonna say something for the
Yeah,
watch party, man.
that's a whole nother conversation.
So we gonna end it on that note, man. We gonna end it on that note. And if you want some more of this
Can I have my cup?
great content, man,
Thank you.
like, comment, subscribe at real men real _men_ stories on YouTube, man. Mr. Cass, Elder Cass, shout out that this is gonna be one of the platforms. There's 2 platforms we're gonna air this live showing. Real man, going to shout out the platform that's airing.
Urban Politician Show.
Urban Politician Show on your website, correct?
We're gonna push it to YouTube and Facebook Live.
You want to give your Facebook handle, your YouTube Live, so they can tap it in. We're gonna keep doing it. We're gonna put it on.
That would be. Oh shit! I think on Facebook it's Urban Politician. YouTube is Urban Politician Show.
So that's what we're gonna do. That's what the handle's gonna be for the watch party. My man, Professor, man, when do you think when's your thing coming out, man? When we gonna start watching you fix things, or what's your plan, man? I'm putting them under pressure because we usually talk about this not in front of the crowd. I got to put them under pressure because I'm ready for that content. I'm ready to start shooting it. So yeah, it's under pressure, Larry. When we gonna see Do That Shit Your Damn Self podcast?
As soon as my cameraman go ahead and come to me to a couple of settings. Actually, honestly, if there's some people out there that need something fixed at their house, we might can talk, and then I can actually do the filming from your house. Do that shit yourself. So I can actually be at your home, filming, do that shit yourself. You can call me for your air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, appliance repair. I pretty much do all. AC, you do AC? Of course, that's what HVAC is.
Man, so HVAC. Hey,
I'm licensed in HVAC.
Tell them your social media handle so they can DM you, man.
Professor _ do that shit yourself. That's DTSY. That's where you can reach me at.
That's with the DTSY. I love that shit. You like that? Because you did Professor _ D. Do that shit yourself.
Do that shit yourself. _ DTSY.
Hey man, so we about to close this out. We about to shut this podcast out, man. I love all y'all. Watch party November 5th. We're definitely not gonna know when the president. We can know, let's say, the likeness of a president, the little likeness. We
may not,
but it might true that. You know what I'm saying? But
it's so.
Yeah, we're gonna that's mail-in votes, the whole 9. We're not gonna go into that.
Right.
So I did write extensive notes on that.
Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Those 3 states.
Pennsylvania is very important. I did see Trump in Pennsylvania because the Mexicans in Pennsylvania say he loved them.
If Kamala wins,
he loves y'all.
States, Kamala will win the election.
He loves y'all. Yeah.
Who wins that?
If Kamala wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, she gets to the 270.
Y'all hear that? Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Ah, man, y'all, if y'all hit us up.
That is the blue wall.
That is the blue wall.
If she don't pick up Georgia,
gonna make America great again.
Arizona, Virginia, to offset that, Trump wins.
MAGA, we're gonna make America great again, baby. I'm ready. I'm ready for the race war. I don't care. I'm ready for these white boys to ask me crazy ass questions. I don't do iron work no more. So there you go, black people, man. Stay blessed. Stay good. One more time, at real_men_real_stories.com. You can check me out at my link tree at Lee Johnson77. Got all my information. My Instagram is the same. My Facebook is the same. And my TikTok is the same. Real_men_real_motherfucking stories. I love y'all and we out, man.
Yeah.
Peace. That's what I'm talking about, man. Dude. I like that, man. That was a good political. See, you thought I was gonna go nuts. I wasn't gonna go nuts.
Why did you say? Why you keep saying that?
Thought I was gonna go nuts.